आर्यन जितने भी है वो बाहर से आए, हम तो मूल भारतीय इस देश में रहने वाले लोग हैं।
You Aryans have come from outside. We are the original Indians. In 2015, a prominent politician from a major national political party made this statement in the Lok Sabha, accusing his political rivals of being Aryan outsiders while claiming for himself the position of the Dravidian, the original inhabitant of India. This wasn't the first time that a politician had resorted to such name calling. Even as far back as the colonial era, the Justice Party and the Dravidian movement in the erstwhile Madras presidency had accused certain communities of being Aryan invaders who had subjugated the indigenous Dravidians. These so-called Aryans had then faced the brunt of persecution by the Dravidian ideologues. So who are these Aryans and Dravidians? Did the Aryans really come from outside India as alleged by some people? Are Dravidians the indigenous inhabitants of the Indian subcontinent? Let's take a look. Sir William Jones, a judge in 1780s India, had discovered a linguistic relationship between Sanskrit, Greek, Latin and other European languages. To explain this relationship between the European languages and Sanskrit, European Indologists and historians in the 18th and 19th centuries came up with the Aryan invasion theory. According to the Aryan invasion theory, a group of fair-skinned, horse-riding Aryans migrated from Central Asia to India and after fierce battle drove away the indigenous dark-skinned Dravidians who lived in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa to southern India. The Aryan-Dravidian divide is a remnant of this theory. However, as no evidence for major conflict or warfare has been found at any major center of the Indus Valley civilization, eventually the invasion theory turned into a migration theory. The Aryan migration theory, or the AMT, holds that migrants from Central Asia simply entered India around 1500 BC and managed to impose their culture on the indigenous inhabitants. It is assumed that it was these migrants who brought with them the fundamentals of Hindu civilization, including the Sanskrit language, the Vedas, and a social order which would later become the caste system as we know it today. Which is why this theory holds massive significance for Indian society, its politics, and our culture. But do we have any evidence for such migrations? Let's look at these proofs one by one. First, let's look at the Vedas themselves. The Vedas do not mention a distant homeland in Europe or Central Asia or any travel or migration. The geography of the Vedas is the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent. The Rig Veda mentions the Saptasindhu region, the Indus, its tributaries, and the Saraswati river, which is flowing in full might. The Nadistuti Sukta of the Rig Veda mentions 19 rivers, which are all in the Indian subcontinent. The Rig Veda even has many references to the ocean, ships, sailing, storms, waves, etc., all of which migrants from Central Asia would be ignorant of. The Vedas do mention wars between Aryas and Dasyus, but nowhere are the Aryas mentioned as a separate race or group of people. The Aryas are people on the side of light or good, and the Dasyus are on the side of darkness. While Dasyus are mentioned as being enveloped in darkness, it is not a reference to their skin complexion, but a figure of speech. Even the Tamil Sangam literature does not say anything about a war with Aryan invaders or migrants, nor is there any reference to a Dravidian migration from the IVC to the south. In fact, the Sangam literature is very respectful of the Vedas and Vedic culture. The sage Agastya, who is mentioned in the Rig Veda, is also an important figure in the Sangam text. This clearly does not fit in with the AIT or AMT. Now let's look if there is any archaeological evidence for these migrations. As mentioned earlier, there is no evidence in any Indus Valley site of major warfare as a result of invasions into the subcontinent. Archaeologist B.B. Lal notes that there is no evidence of invaders or weapons or tools towards the end of the Indus Valley civilization. The Indus Valley civilization, or more accurately, the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization, declined due to a combination of ecological factors, including the drying up of the Saraswati river. Several sites on the bed of the Saraswati river were abandoned around 1900 BC, which is when the river dried up and the people moved elsewhere. If Aryan migrants really did come to India 400 years later in 1500 BC, why would the Vedas mention the Saraswati river flowing in its full might? Clearly that would not have been possible, as the Aryans were not time travelers. According to archaeologist and anthropologist John Mark Kenoyer, the later sites of the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization show a remarkable continuity in pottery styles and technology, overall site layout, the use of standardized bricks, etc. In other words, there is no significant cultural break between the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization civilization and the later post-Harappan cultures, which are conventionally identified as Aryan or Vedic settlements. Furthermore, if Aryans arrived in India riding on horse-driven chariots, there should be no horses in the Sindhu-Saraswati sites, but remains of horses dated to 2100 to 1700 BC have been found at Surkotada, an archaeological site in Gujarat. Even genetic studies question the AIT or AMT. With no evidence to back up the AIT or AMT, it stands to reason that Hindu civilization is indigenous to India. If there is no cultural break between the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization and the Vedic civilization, it also stands to reason that both are one and the same. This is further backed by the presence of the swastika, fire altars, worship of Shiva, seals and figures depicting yogic postures, etc. in various Sindhu-Saraswati sites. While the cities of the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization disappeared, the culture lived on. The Aryan migration theory is an outdated and divisive theory with lots of colonial baggage and should rightly be consigned to the dustbin of history.